Hi, my name is Ada Pembroke. I'm an astrologer and storyteller, and today I'm continuing my Astrology 101 series by talking about planets, signs, and houses. It is very difficult to talk about these three things accurately in isolation. I think that is one of the ways that people tend to get in trouble with astrology. They think that if they can break it down into chunks, it will be easier to understand. And with most things, that's absolutely accurate, but with astrology, it doesn't work out quite that way. The planets, signs, and houses are not like parts of speech in a sentence. One of the differences between parts of speech, nouns, verbs, adjectives, and planets, signs, and houses is that you can understand what a tree is in isolation, but it's much more difficult to understand a planet, sign, or house without understanding how planets, signs, and houses relate to each other. I'm actually going to start with the houses because the houses, interestingly enough, are some of the easiest to understand in isolation. The houses are actually rather simple. The houses represent areas of your life. The second house represents your resources and your finances. The fourth house represents your home, your family of origin, your sense of roots. The seventh house represents your relationships, particularly partnership relationships and rivalry and people with whom you compete. When a planet is going through the seventh house, you're going to be feeling the significations of that planet in your relationships. When a planet is going through the fourth house, you're going to be experiencing changes in the area of your home or with your family of origin, or you're going to be learning something about your sense of roots. If a planet is going through the 10th house of career, you're going to be experiencing things in your career. Planets, for the purposes of this video, are areas of your psyche. The sun represents your ego. The moon represents your emotional life and your style of self-care. Mercury represents your mind and your communication style. These are all shorthands, but you can generally attach the planets when you are looking at a natal chart to an area of yourself. Now, the signs are like filters on the planets. They're the personalities of the planets. Mercury is your mind. The sign tells you what type of mind you have. The house tells you what types of things you like to think about. So I'm going to give you an example. I have Mercury in Aries and the 9th house. Mercury, like I said, is the mind. And Aries corresponds to the archetype of the warrior. So what does it mean to have the mind of a warrior? A warrior is thinking a lot about defenses, conflict. A warrior tends to be conflict oriented. Some people with Mercury and Aries are looking for arguments, or they find themselves in arguments whether they want to be in arguments or not. Warriors are also direct and blunt people. People with Mercury and Aries, unless they have other influences in their chart that are influencing their conversation style, like I do, tend to speak in short, clipped sentences. The 9th house rules a lot of different things that kind of, when you put them together on a mind map, you can see how they have a common theme, but it's not one direct thing. Like the 7th house is relationships. The 9th house rules higher education, publishing, religion, and cross-cultural experiences. The ancients called the 9th house the house of long journeys over water. And the reason for this was because in the ancient world, if you went on a long journey over water, it was like going on a sci-fi adventure. When you got off in a foreign port, it would be like an entirely different world. People who have a strong emphasis on the 9th house are people who are either going to be put in situations where they are going to have encounters with people or ideas or places that make them feel far from home, or they are people who need those types of experiences to thrive. And I am a person, because I have Mercury in the 9th house, who needs to have conversations with people who are very different than me. One of the things that really breaks my heart is the fact that we live in a world at the moment where it is incredibly difficult to have conversations with people who have very different philosophical beliefs than you without things getting into a polarizing us-them debate. And you can hear, as I'm talking about this maybe, that the Aries is coming in. I don't like it, but I live in a world where talking about philosophy and having encounters with people who are different than you leads to conflict. And so one of my big challenges is to figure out how to get my needs met for talking to people who are different than me while not falling into conflict all the time, or alternately learning how to deal with conflict in a way that is constructive and that hurts the least amount of people. So that is a basic introduction to the planets, signs, and houses. I have massively simplified things, and you can go much deeper into these things, but if you understand that the planets are aspects of your psyche, the signs are the style of how that aspect of your psyche expresses itself in the world, and the houses are areas of the life, you will understand the basics of how to put together those three elements into something that is cohesive and a whole and that makes sense. If you enjoyed this video, please like it and subscribe, and tell me if there are any Astrology 101 topics that you would like me to cover. Thank you so much.